Hey guys, hoping all is well with everyone. So in this video we're going to be continuing the read-along story of The Secret Zoo, Secrets and Shadows by Brian Chick, and we're going to be continuing with chapter 41. And as always, I'll be showing you any pictures that we do come across, but please feel free to follow along as always. Chapter 41, The Confrontation. Beneath Giraffic Jam was a tunnel with 4 branches. The main passage was lined with ordinary bricks and was tall enough to accommodate the long necks of the giraffes. The opening to each branch was covered with a curtain, and metal plates above the curtains named the passages: Metropolis, the Secret Rhinorama, the Strip of Stripes, and the Secret Giraffic Jam. Tamarin hurried through the curtain leading to the Secret Giraffic Jam. As the scouts pushed through it, the curtain's tassels danced around their feet. Inside the new tunnel, the ground inclined to a point of light. The scouts quickly walked the distance and emerged into the sector, their feet moving from the hard earth to the wooden planks of a deck. The Secret Giraffic Jam was a gigantic version of Clarksville Zoo's giraffe exhibit. Noah remembered Tamarin explaining how a sector, during its creation, took on the characteristics of the exhibit connected to it. This seemed especially true of the Secret Giraffic Jam. The sector wasn't wide. Noah could plainly see the blinking light marking the entrance into the City of Species about 300 feet away. But what the sector lacked in width, it made up for in height. Through an endless vista of trees, walkways swerved and turned and dipped like a tangle of roadways in a Dr. Seuss book. Autumn had brushed color across the magical heights, and leaves rained down and piled on everything. The walkways, the ground, even the branches. The giraffes, too numerous to count, paced in all directions on the widening decks, their powerful necks sweeping about. They reached their heads far over the rails, defeating the simple obstacle of distance to munch on leaves. "Incredible!" Richie muttered, with his face raised to take in the scene. His wiggly pom-pom dangled off his hat. From above on the walkway, 3 people jogged up: Sam, Solana, and Hannah. They maneuvered through the giraffes, ducking beneath their outstretched necks and speckled bodies. They stepped up to the scouts and wordlessly stood there. As Tamarin moved away to join his friends, the scouts traded nervous glances. The only sounds were the clumping of the giraffe's hooves and the occasional pop of Hannah's gum. Sam fixed his eyes on Noah and finally said, "What are you trying to prove?" cracking each word like a whip. Noah opened his mouth to speak, but his tongue simply sat beneath his teeth, spongy and shapeless. "You got an answer?" Noah knew he had to say something, so he released the first words his tongue managed to form. I thought I could go in the grottos, and it would be no big deal. I thought... Do you have any clue what you've done?" Sam turned to Megan. "And you! At what point did you think it'd be cool to ride your mini bike across the zoo?" Megan started to say something, but Noah interrupted her. "It's not her fault. It's mine." Sam shook his head at Noah. "This was the most dangerous, most unnecessary stunt a crosser has ever pulled. Ever. Are you trying to get the secret society discovered?" "You're right," Noah conceded. "It was wrong. Totally wrong." He stared at his feet. "I was confused and looking for answers the wrong way." Let me tell you how it works," Sam said. "You learn what we want you to learn." "How are we supposed to help you if we don't understand everything that's going on? How can we be on your side if..." "That's just it. You're not on our side, and you won't be. Not ever. You're outsiders. Don't you get it?" Noah flushed with anger. "That doesn't mean anything." "Maybe not to you, but to us on the inside, it makes all the difference in the world." Noah turned to the other descenders. Tamarin stared down at the scouts, his eyes buried in the shadow of his hat brim. Hannah worked her jaw, perpetually reshaping the gum in her mouth. Solana stood with her shoulders slumped, her hip cocked to one side, the tips of her fingers tucked into her pant pockets. Noah could think of nothing to say but the truth. "We might be outsiders, but we're not going anywhere. Not until this is done. Not until the Sasquatches are found and DeGraff is stopped. If DeGraff gets inside, we're all in trouble. Not just you guys, but us on the outside. Our families, our friends. Don't you think that gives us a right to understand what's going on? The descenders only hardened their stares. Look, Noah said. I messed up, but... He stumbled over his thoughts and added, why couldn't you just tell us about the grottos, huh? And why can't you just tell us who you are? Your jackets, your boots, they obviously have some kind of purpose. And those velvet patches, that's the same fabric as the curtains, right? Noah reached out to touch the velvet on Sam's shoulder, but he pulled away. Descender, Noah continued. I looked the word up. A descender can be the part of a letter that drops below the rest of it. Do you know what I'm talking about? In the letter Y, the descender could be the little slash. He made a cutting motion with his fingertip. That drops down. The descender is the tail on the body of a letter. Hannah stopped chomping her gum and Solana uneasily shifted her stance. Ella, Richie, and Megan stared at Noah, waiting for more. The tail on the body? Noah repeated. The tail on the body, formed by two converging lines. The definition obviously refers to a line on a piece of paper, but couldn't the line be something else? A line of defense, maybe? Like Tamron talked about? He talked about the line of animals and a line of humans guarding the secret zoo. Tamron steps forward. Kid, are you nuts? We're not letters, we're people. You think you can pick up a dictionary and figure out... If you guys only give us pieces of information, then we have to put those pieces together, said Noah. All around him, falling leaves continued to pile on the deck. It would be a lot easier if you'd give us the complete picture instead. No response. Noah took a step forward. You know what I think? I think the magic of this place has somehow changed you. At this, Ella and Richie drew back from Noah. Megan gently laid her hand on her brother's shoulder. Come on, Noah, she whispered to him. You're getting a bit carried away, don't you think? Shrugging his sister's hand, Noah looked straight at Sam and said, Tell me I'm not just making this stuff up in my head. Sam kept his stare locked on Noah's. Each refused to look away. The other scouts silently stood by. Noah, Megan said, let it go. This isn't the time or... When is the time, huh? When the Sasquatches rip apart the secret zoo? When DeGraff gets inside this stupid place? When is it going to be a good time for us to learn what we're dealing with? Sam took a step toward Noah. You think we're just going to stand here and let you destroy us? Destroy you? Megan squeezed between Sam and Noah. Listen, bro, she coaxed. You need to cool off. This is getting... Noah pulled away from the group and started pacing. His face was flushed with anger, and his heart was pounding. Megan was right about one thing. He needed to cool down. He walked to the edge of the deck. With his back to everyone, he leaned his forearms against the rail and stared out into the secret giraffic jam. Throughout the sector, the giraffes had craned their long necks toward the commotion. To Sam, Megan said, Look, maybe we should... These were the last words Noah heard. All his attention was suddenly diverted to an intense pain that sparked in the bottom of his left leg. He looked down to see a beastly hand clutching his ankle. From under the walkway, the yellow eyes of a Sasquatch stared up at him. The monster pulled Noah's leg, dragging him under the railing. Noah felt himself hurtling through space, that he thudded against the hard ground. Stars filled his vision. Dazed, he rolled onto his back, stirring the fallen leaves. The Sasquatch lunged at him, his blade-like claws spread out like weapons. It all happened so fast that Noah didn't have time to scream. Chapter 42. The Strike of the Sasquatch. As the Sasquatch swung its claws down, Noah threw himself aside. The beast just missed him and ripped open the earth, slinging dirt into the air. Noah jumped up and took off running into the core of the sector. Glancing over his shoulder, he saw the Sasquatch drop to all fours and chase after him, its rocky knuckles pounding the ground. In its wicked snarl, Noah saw 2 sets of fangs and a wall of huge square teeth. Giraffes scattered. Their hooves kicked leaves into a low cloud of swirling colors that Noah charged through. Noah ran upon a stream embedded about 3 feet in the ground. He jumped down in its steep bank and splashed into the water, which came to his knees, deeper than he'd expected. He plowed across it and leaped over the embankment on the opposite side, landing on his stomach. Before he could rise, the earth around him quaked as the legs of the Sasquatch slammed down, one on another side of him. The beast had jumped the width of the river and landed directly over Noah. With a sideways glance, Noah saw that the monster's feet were as large as Noah's entire torso. From its toes sprang claws that reminded Noah of bladed tools used for farming. Curling in yellow, they dug into the earth. Noah somehow threw his weight forward, jumping low over the ground like a fog. At the same moment, the Sasquatch swiped its claws at him, just missing Noah but shredded his jacket. A cloud of insulated padding swirled out into the air. Noah jumped to his feet and once again ran as fast as he could, his heart pounding. Around him, giraffes continued to scramble. One darted in front of Noah, accidentally tripping him with its long leg. Noah fell head first and slid through the leaves. Turning onto his back, he found the Sasquatch once again towering over him. The beast threw back its head and roared, exposing the piercing points of its fangs. Then it balled its knuckles and hammered them against its chest, roaring, raining spit everywhere. Then abruptly, it fell silent and stood still, staring directly at Noah. Its intention was clear. Destruction. Was this payback? Revenge? Did the Sasquatch know who Noah was? Did it understand how the scouts had thwarted the Sasquatch's escape from the Darklands on their first trip to the secret zoo? It didn't matter. Not really. In seconds, the claws of the Sasquatch would come down and end his life. Poised over Noah, the beast roared mightily once more and cocked an arm. Its outspread claws glinted in the sunlight. Just as Noah became certain he'd be ripped apart, the ground shook. Around him, 4 astounding creatures had dropped in. Noah stared. First they looked like people, then animals, then something in between. Chapter 43. The Descent. The Sasquatch snapped its stare to the 4 beings surrounding it. Noah watched from the ground, more than once attempting to blink away his disbelief. The Dissenters? But they had changed. Behind the Sasquatch stood Sam, his long unruly bangs across his eyes like a mask. He held his arms out to his sides, and from his leather sleeves hung layers of great silver feathers. Wings. They sprouted from his arms and across his back, extending far beyond his normal reach. Noah could only guess at their span. 12 feet? 15 feet? 20 feet? More? Draped around him, they blotted out of the light, casting a single shadow across Noah and the Sasquatch. Sunlight burst onto their edges, making the descender appear to glow. On one side of the Sasquatch was Tamarin, or what had once been Tamarin anyway. Now his head, arms, and torso were covered in layered bands of armor, like those of an armadillo. His hat with the low brim had turned into a helmet, one that covered his entire head except for his eyes and jaw. None of these traits astonished Noah more than one that lay partially coiled on the ground beside the descender. A tail. As long as 15 feet, he was covered in armored plates and studded with a jumble of spikes, their concentration heaviest at the end of the tail. It had dropped from inside Tamarin's backpack, and he was surely the thing Noah had been seen moving inside the big canvas bag in butterfly nets. Standing on the other side of the Sasquatch was Hannah. She was as much as a foot taller than before. The soles of her boots, only an inch or 2 thick, were now at least 10 inches high. As she shifted her weight to the side, her rubbery-looking soles bulged outward and then sprang back into shape. The leather sides of her boots had thickened, giving additional support to her lower legs. Noah's gaze lifted to Hannah's face. Almost incredibly, she was still chomping her gum. Last, Noah saw Solana standing just beyond his head. Her jacket was covered in quills at least 12 inches long. They lay flat, their bottom halves black, their top halves ivory white. They were the longest on the backs of her gloves, 15 inches or more. As she stood there with her arms hanging down, the quills on her gloves reached beyond her knees like long claws. The Sasquatch, now on all fours, turned in a slow circle, studying its adversaries. It rolled back on its head, and it let loose a call to the beasts of the secret society had come to fear. It pounded its fists against the ground, sending leaves rippling through its long, mangy hair. The descenders braced themselves. Sam beat his long silver wings, stirring the air. Tamarin huddled into the protection of his armor. Hannah rocked on the springy soles of her boots. Solana raised her quill-covered fists. The descenders were ready to lunge forward, ready to pounce upon, to attack with violence and suddenness, ready to descend. Just then, Ella's voice rang out, "Noah, move!" Ella's cry startled the Sasquatch long enough for Noah to squirm out from under it and crawl beneath Tamarin and Solana. Realizing that its captive was escaping, the Sasquatch swung at Noah. As its arms swept through the air, Solana lunged forward and sank her quills into it. The Sasquatch threw back its head and howled. The beast turned and ran, directly at Hannah. She pushed off on her boots and leaped high into the air. 5 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet, more. As the creature passed beneath her, Tamarin dropped his shoulder and charged, plowing it into its back and slamming it into the ground. Without breaking his stride, Tamarin swung his massive tail high in the air. Its heavy, multi-spiked tip flew around in a perfect arc and landed on the Sasquatch, crushing it. Immediately, the beast went still. The descenders had killed it. The scouts rushed to Noah, who lay in the spill of leaves. Everything was completely surreal to him. The descenders eased up. Hannah popped her gum. Sam swung his bangs out of his eyes. Solana dropped her arms and relaxed her stance. Across the heights of the sector, giraffes craned their necks over the winding decks to stare down on the scene. Noah stood. The 4 scouts huddled close together and stared with wide-eyed apprehension at the descenders. "You're..." Noah searched the fog of his confusion for the right words. "You're animals?" "Not hardly." Sam stepped forward, his long wings trailing behind him like a cape. "We're human." He pointed to Hannah's boots. "And have you ever seen an animal with feet like that?" "But your wings," Noah pointed to Tamarin, "and his tail." "We carry their abilities, the things that make them great. We don't..." Sam swung his head back. A growl had come from behind him. Through the trees stepped another Sasquatch. Then a second, a third, and a fourth. They crept forward with their shoulders slouched, their mangy hair swaying. Goopy lines of spit clung to their fangs. All 4 descenders turned. Then they spread out and prepared to fight. And I'll stop the video there, ending chapter 43. But I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and in the continuation and the final video of the Secret Zoo Secrets and Shadows read along, we'll be finishing the story in the next video. But I hope you guys enjoyed that, and as always, please take good care of yourselves, and thank you so much for watching.